Welcome to the latest episode of the Federal's Worldly Wise, a weekly show that attempts to deconstruct trending international issues. If I say the Middle East, or West Asia as we in India call, is on tenterhooks, that is nothing new, for the region has been on tenterhooks for a long time. The latest phase lasting 23 years since the US invasion of Iraq in 2003. The latest reason for the tension is the standing threat by US President Donald Trump to militarily attack Iran, ostensibly over its nuclear program. Trump also wants Iran to shut down its ballistic missile program, stop supporting Islamic groups like the Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis, and treat internal protesters more humanely. In June last year, Trump demolished Iran's nuclear sites using the top of the line bunker busting bombs. If true, that should have meant the end, or at least a paralysis of Iran's nuclear program. But then, why is the US and Israel wanting to negotiate an end to Iran's nuclear enrichment program if it is already destroyed to whatever extent? It appears the real reason is Iran's ballistic missile program. In the noise and dust over its nuclear enrichment project, somehow the West missed this. Either Iran's missile program was not taken seriously, or it was simply a case of misjudgment. When Iran triggered the 12-day war in June last year by firing missiles aimed to destroy Iran's nuclear program, they were reportedly stunned by Iran's retaliatory strikes using its ballistic missiles. Not just Israel, the entire world was surprised by Iran's counterattack that almost neutralized Israel's belligerence. The US too, which was in the process of negotiating with Iran at the time on the nuclear issue, was stunned. Trump, a great friend of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, realized that Israel would not be able to achieve its aim on its own and could in fact be stopped in its tracks. Trump would not obviously allow that. So he abandoned the ongoing talks at the time and sent in superior bunker buster bombs that struck 3 nuclear sites at the heart of Iran's nuclear program. That is how the limited conflict ended, but not entirely satisfactorily for the US and Israel. Though the US knew all about Iran's ballistic missile program, their focus was on its nuclear program, maybe at the cost of ignoring Iran's ballistic missiles. According to reports, Iran has the largest stockpile of ballistic missiles in the Middle East. Most of them have a range of over 2,000 kilometers, enough to target Israel. The missile sites are located around Tehran, and many of them are underground. The missiles, like the Sejil, can travel up to 17,000 kilometers per hour and cover 2,500 kilometers within minutes. Israel, on the other hand, has a 3-tiered missile defense system comprising the Iron Dome, David Sling, and Arrow series. When Iran fired the missiles, Israel discovered that they could not intercept them 100%. This has hugely boosted Iran's missile capability and is therefore viewed by analysts as a deterrence for further Israeli and US attacks. Reports quoting top Iranian military officials say by upgrading its ballistic missiles in all technical dimensions, Iran has been able to strengthen its deterrence power. According to military experts, ballistic missiles take a parabolic path through the air. They are much faster than drones and cruise missiles. Crucially, they are harder to intercept. No wonder then that Trump has once again started pressuring Iran to stop its nuclear enrichment, and this time significantly demanding that Iran wind down its ballistic missile program. Iran logically has resisted this demand as succumbing to US pressure will make it a sitting duck. Meanwhile, tight US sanctions sent Iran's economy recently, including its currency, into a tailspin. People protested against the difficulties they faced in their day-to-day life. The Islamic government's biggest support base, the traders, too joined in the protests for the first time since the revolution in 1979. The US jumped in, supported the protesting groups, and demanded that the Tehran regime stop using force to halt the protests. Trump and Netanyahu would have liked regime change, but that is harder than they expected. On the contrary, the US and Israel's involvement has backfired. Many protesters have withdrawn as they continue to hate the US and Israel and don't want to see Iran back under their control. Trump, after threatening to attack Iran, appears to have backtracked, instead resorting to negotiations once again. But the talks seem to be heading nowhere. Iran has agreed to discuss only the nuclear issue. The rest, regarding its ballistic missile program and its handling of protests, besides its links to Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis, they are all off the table. From Iran's perspective, it is necessary to hold on to the nuclear program and, more importantly, its ballistic missile project. The Khamenei regime knows only too well what happened in Iraq in 2003 when its weakened military was unable to withstand the US-led invasion. Trump knows too that merely firing missiles into Iran will not dislodge the Khamenei regime. A full-blown military attack could result in unexpected consequences. It could end up in a prolonged conflict, even if Khamenei were to be dislodged from power, as it happened with Saddam Hussein in Iraq. And remember, one of Trump's major promise to his MAGA supporters in the US was that he would not embark on any military adventure. Venezuela was a swift operation, and its scope was limited to just one man, President Nicolas Maduro. In the case of Iran, it is bound to be very different, and there are high chances of it breaking into a full-fledged war. The US is already dealing with the consequences of its provocation of Vladimir Putin that has resulted in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war for the last 4 years. Trump criticized his predecessor, Joe Biden, for the conflict and promised his voters he would do no such thing. On paper, therefore, it is highly unlikely that the US will embark on an extensive attack on Iran or even a targeted strike on Iran's Islamic leadership. But such assessments are not foolproof, given that Trump is in charge and not exactly known to be predictable, a temperament that is bound to keep the region on tenterhooks. Thank you.